Hi, my name is Frank Schaeffer, and I come from a religious right background. In fact, my father, Francis Schaeffer, was one of the founders of the religious right, and back in the 70s and 80s, I was his nepotistic sidekick. And I've mentioned this before on my other video commentaries and in articles, but the point is, I'm going to be talking about religion for a moment here and politics, and I just want people who see this to understand that this is my background. Back in the beginnings of the religious right, a new radio program started called Focus on the Family, hosted by Dr. James Dobson, who became a shrill opponent of feminism and women's rights and gay rights, and tried to, in essence, establish a theocracy here in this country using his mantle as a psychologist counseling families as an excuse to really try to roll the clock back to the Stone Ages when it came to our view of gay men and women, our view of sexuality, our view of family. He was an advocate of corporal discipline for children, had an anecdote in one of his books about how he beat a dog and suggested people do the same thing with their children. I mention this because today I was just listening to the news on BBC4 and actually had tears on my cheeks because I was hearing about how little children and teenagers had been blown up in a concert in Manchester in England. I have a sister who lives in England and friends there and nieces and nephews and many family members, and I went to a boarding school in England for a while when my missionary parents sent me off to boarding school to get some education in English because we were living in a French-speaking country. But today I think that in looking back of my own involvement in the religious right and understanding that what we tried to establish here with organizations like the Moral Majority and working with the Bush family and Ronald Reagan and others, was really our American version, an evangelical Christian version of Sharia law, of a kind of a theocracy, a soft version of what they have in Iran and what Saudi Arabia is, of course. And as we get news of another tragedy, another disaster, another act of Islamic fascist terror, perpetrated against innocent children, we have to remember that we have Christian fascist terror in this country too, in the most direct sense of blowing up abortion clinics and murdering doctors, but also in a less direct sense when Mike Pence, who is a theocrat, who is a reconstructionist, believes that we ought to take the Old Testament law and apply it to America, and has worked assiduously to hurt gay people, to take women's rights and reverse them, to work with the Republican Party in redistricting and in suits and in fake investigations of voter fraud to try to stop black people from voting, in his cruel association with Donald Trump's not only anti-Muslim racism and religious intolerance, but with his racism against Hispanics and Mexicans in particular. It strikes me as oddly, bizarrely horrible that Donald Trump was just in Saudi Arabia, the people who supplied most of the 9/11 hijackers, the country that through their Wahhabist Islamic extremism have poisoned Islam throughout the globe, in fact started a civil war with Shia Islam and Iran, that we are siding with these Sunni extremists, terrorists who have financed global terror, and that our president is making business deals with them, and that his son-in-law Jared Kushner is involved in this, and then flies from Saudi Arabia directly to Israel, a country that would not exist if it wasn't for fundamentalist American and British Christians in the 19th and early 20th century with loopy ideas about the return of Christ, who wanted Israel reestablished so that biblical prophecy would be fulfilled and Jesus could come back. This is a country with a crazy background. Everybody talks about Zionism. What they forget is that it was the evangelical fundamentalist Christians of Great Britain and the evangelical fundamentalist Christians of America and their political sympathizers or shills or servants who created this strange religious country that is now rapidly becoming an apartheid state, where the Palestinians are really taking the role that the black people in South Africa had for years, where they will be the numeric majority but ruled by a minority, in this case not so much a white minority but a Jewish minority. So we have this religious state of Saudi Arabia that beheads people and won't let women drive because they say that's what their prophet wants. They we have a country that Donald Trump is in now founded on essentially religious intolerance, saying this is a Jewish state. We live in a country where theocrats, Protestant evangelicals, say the same thing about America. I'm not picking on Israel. We're the same. Founded by Puritans who wanted an even purer religion. Donald Trump has opened our eyes to something, or at least opened my eyes. The day for pussyfooting around with these religious fanatics globally, whether they're Islamic terrorists, Christian terrorists, theocrats like Mike Pence, nutcase Israeli settlers stealing West Bank Arab properties and claiming it's theirs because of something they read in the Jewish scriptures. The problem is the same. And you know, it's not just the Abrahamic covenant nutcases. It is the Hindu nutcases right now, the Hindu nationalists who are killing Muslims, who are murdering people because they say they butchered a cow, who are sometimes killing Christians and driving them out, saying we want a Hindu nation, a Hindu nationalism. Donald Trump has shown us something. 81% of the white evangelical vote went for him. These people are un-American, they are anti-American, they betrayed our country by voting for him, putting an incompetent fool that lots of folks say just probably has Alzheimer's creeping up on him, and certainly has mental problems of ego and all the rest of this nepotistic family of kleptocrats who are now stealing directly from the United States by using their powerful position to build Trump properties around the world and cash in on this. Jared Kushner's sister even going to China telling them she could get big investors' green cards and all the rest of this sick, tawdry little mess. It's all because of religion. Look, I am not anti-religious. I take my grandchildren to church. I believe in community. I'm an atheist most of the time. Like other people, I have doubts about my own convictions because I'm not crazy. Only addicts to certainty or certainty addicts are people who think they have the truth. I don't ever claim to have the truth. But my impression is that we should stop messing around and pretending that religion is something nice. It's dreadful. Hindus are killing Muslims in India because somebody said a cow got butchered. Jews are stealing Arab property and murdering Palestinian children on not just the West Bank, but in Gaza, killing them hundreds to one in their so-called wars, which are really just vast-scale actions, state actions, atrocity actions against a Palestinian population. ISIS is targeting people, and now we have this London bombing of children being killed. In our country, Mike Pence's budget, because it is his budget, this Christian's budget, Donald Trump doesn't give a crap about policy. Mike Pence's budget cuts Medicaid for the poor, attacks the very white underclass voters who depend more than black people, by the way, just for the record, more than Hispanics, by the way, just for the record, more than immigrants, by the way, more than illegals, by the way. It's white, unemployed, hillbilly underclass / hillbilly elegy types, if you know the book, who are gobbling up state subsidy. It's all being cut for these folks in the name of Republican Ayn Randian love of billionaires who get tax cuts as medical expenses and medical insurance and coverage and programs for the poor are slashed. This is Mike Pence's idea of the gospel. Son of a bitch, Pence. Go back and read your Bible and try to believe some of it rather than just what Ayn Rand told you is acceptable. So look, I'm not anti-religious, but let's just call it a day here. Get religion out of politics, get it out of global conflict. Vladimir Putin has the support of the Russian Orthodox Church, those anti-gay, backward, anti-scientific thugs. America wants to back out of global agreements to do something about climate change, supported by evangelicals who don't even believe in evolution science or the fact that gays are born that way, and are open to every conspiracy theory because they believe the Bible's true. So of course their brains are broken as the Islamic terrorists. Finished. No more middle ground. You cannot be soft-pedaling kindness and tolerance towards religious fanaticism wherever we find it. Thank you. My name is Frank Schaeffer.